is a combination of 4 different concepts, ideas, strategies, methodologies. The first of which is Medusa, as part of mythology, with the death of a certain Roman Greek character. The second one being meditations being the philosophical scriptures of Marcus Aurelius. The third being manifestation, which is a certain evolution of the greater project from the slice of life. And the fourth being something else, I can't remember the person. But needless to say, we are continuing with a new development once again, and we intend to keep these episodes as short as possible. The first of which is that for this particular episode, which again should be less than about 10 minutes tops, we will briefly cover the return of a live streaming aspect that we had put on hiatus for a substantial period of time. And it's actually very difficult for me, by the way, to actually speak into the mic right now, because I'm trying to keep my direction. It's very difficult, because I actually have a live stream running right now. I have a live stream running right now, and with that live stream running, I am currently live over on several platforms, multi-streaming. And the best way I can illustrate this is if I had a choice. You can see right here, live right here, on this side of the mic, on video. Here is my actual phone. One of many phones that I've been using recently to record. Well, actually the first time recording on this particular phone. And it's taken me quite some time to transfer the files and setup and equipment and application software over from my old phone over to the next one. And so that's what we have right now. It's running. We are live, I believe, on just 2, maybe 2 out of 4 platforms, because in order to run over on YouTube, I believe there needs to be a confirmation, and I haven't pressed any confirmation on either YouTube or on Facebook. Now, what I want to say in this episode is that, this is a good development. I'm very happy to say that we've been able to restore some elements, but the greatest highlight here isn't just the return of our live streaming. The greater development is that for the first time ever, despite me having had, and I guess it's something worth discussing, but I've actually developed my own virtual VTubing model for about, probably before the pandemic globally. And so this would have been during 2019. During 2019, I started developing my own model. So I can't believe it, but that's more than 7 years ago. More than 7 years ago. And since then, I found myself within a very toxic work environment that was damaging, and then that festered a whole variety of very heavy topics, including long-term domestic abuse. And so as a result, I entered a homelessness crisis as I was escaping, I was fleeing in 2021. So from that gap period from 2019 to 2021, those 2 years, actually 2022 really, so 2 to 3 years, I had to cut any of my projects having to do with the development of product assets and content over for our live stream. And eventually I had to cut and take a hiatus from the whole project altogether, with intermittent breaks, roughly about half a year or 6 months in between to 9 months. But now, for the first time ever, I'm actually, even during that time in 2019, I never had actually used in 2020, 2019, 2021, with the model being developed, I still had not implemented, executed on the usage of my model. And, or really, I would just say, as we've mentioned already, Meditusa 2 comprises manifestation, meditations, mythology, and Medusa. But we had not made use of our model at all. And that model is a manifestation of impersonification of the selves and personification fragments that we've developed throughout our lifetime to make do with the world. And so, I guess I can say I'm presenting for the first time. Is there a name? Well, just work with region. So, at the very top left, my top right, you'll find that I can't actually display for some reason, probably because of Windows security or my operating Linux or Mac security system preventing the display of, say, a PNG photograph on app. I can't even use Microsoft Paint to demonstrate that. And so what I'm using now is just the Explorer window tab, and I've magnified it on view to the size of extra large. And so what you can see on the side then is actually a screenshot of the module on my app, which currently we are using a certain application, Prism Live Studio. For those who are aware, Prism is a fantastic app in my opinion, that at one point was free to use, even for many of its features. Now it's still free, but to use many of the features that were once freely available, you have to actually be subscribed. And I don't know if I can actually, I'm not sure if I can actually hear, because I'm using the Bluetooth to record any audio for the live stream. So, with having said that, right, you can see above here, on this end, the various, just one screenshot of the application, and that is our model just on the very top left, right there. It's funny because on stream the hair is glitching out and it's like spazzing all across the back whenever I make too large of a movement. So it shows that there's still editing work that I have not done in some time. I had it fixed, the hair, but now it's moving all over the place. Needless to say, I don't think we'll be putting too much emphasis on this for quite some time, because the bigger emphasis is just making sure that we can actually make use of this component or piece or fragment, this symbolic representation of ourselves. And to put a little bit more depth into it, we are an abstraction. This is something that we had decided when we were very very early on into our, just when I was all the way down into more than 30 years ago, having grown up in an environment with depravity, debauchery, malice, vanity, hatred, and all sorts of things in my environment, whether in the household or on the streets, or at school, and there was danger everywhere. One of the solutions I had presented was to no longer be me, but to be many pieces of us, and be able to take on the role of a soldier, a monk, a mother, a father, an older sibling, a grandfather, a grandmother, whatever was necessary. But to go beyond that, to extend beyond into the world, into a certain state of consciousness that transcends, that goes beyond the limitations of the basic limitations and restrictions, even deficits, detrimental traits of humanity as a whole. I suppose you could say at the time I was unaware, but I was philosophizing and developing solutions that would delve into the human psyche, things of what many, 2 decades later I would come to realize was philosophy and analytical psychotherapy, along the lines of Fyodor Dostoevsky, Carl Jung. I came to only realize many 2 decades afterwards that I was developing my own framework for understanding the world, which had already been developed by many apparent thinkers throughout the thousands of years. One of which, for example, was a codependent version of Stoicism, another for metaphysics, another for epistemology, another for consciousness and the self-awareness, another for the application, business application, relationship application, dynamics into causality and chaos and into our everyday daily living routines. And so from that birthed many different fragments, some of which I have mentioned already: a role of a parental figure, a soldier, enlightenment from a monk, a motherly, fatherly figure. It transcends any sort of boundaries and limitations that traditionally would speak of biological limitations. And the goal was to rid ourselves of the most destructive and detrimental aspects of humanity, so that we could provide not just a proper role model for ourselves, because we didn't have one, and any that we had were violent and potentially catastrophic in an household setting. We didn't have a model. But then there were dependents, someone who I would consider to be my own son, figuratively, not literally, but, well, maybe literally, but and so you had to parent yourself, even though biologically you were just a child, and then take on the role of a parent for another child. I simply couldn't allow for time to pass. I had to learn things on the spot immediately, and I couldn't allow for myself to wait and develop and mature organically. I had to force and the early stage at which you develop consciousness and self-awareness is roughly, for any biological human being, roughly about 3.5 years old. Which is, I didn't realize this a little bit just more than a sub-series and subconcept that we had developed several years ago of the 1,000 Days Till Death. Well, 3 years is roughly about 1,200 days. So you could say that one develops consciousness in roughly the estimated amount of time that I had projected and incorporated into one of our old sub-series of Project Zero. One of those fragments, long story short, is what you see on screen, is this, I should say that this model is actually a conglomerate and aggregation of many features that came together in one particular form, because there are obviously 1,000 different influences and forms and components and pieces and fragments, pop culture references to media and film and stories and novels and experiences and anecdotes and networking and people, friends and family, acquaintances, historical figures, legends, champions. Everything goes into the deconstruction and the overall aggregation into the manifestation of our model. And I'm glad, to keep things light now, to end on a light note, I'm glad to say that there's actually some form, a physical form, well, I guess digital, not physical form, being manifested that I can show on screen over here. And that you can also see if you were to pop in over on Twitch. So, once again, so that's the main theme of this episode, is us. Another form of us, among many different things. And that will allow us to deliver more niche and varied types of content, whether it be in the form of information or entertainment. This will be one form in which we access and engage with the world. Sorry to get all philosophical, it's like really funny stupid. I don't know why I had to get that deep into it, but anyways. That's been our models. So I'll see you in the next one. I don't know why you have to go that deep into it. I wouldn't expect a lot of it's improv. Because I haven't really fleshed out what really to be said. It was just organic. I'm just relying on myself organically to say what can be said, to dig up whatever was in the past that I haven't rehearsed in a very long time, that we haven't practiced in probably half a decade now. So this is nice. I'll see you in the next episode. And the next episode, whether we will cover, for the record, I should mention that our live streams will be continuous between video recordings and episodes on podcast. They'll be recorded back to back on a single live stream. And then those live streams will have to figure out a regular time to do the recordings. Today, I was in the spur of the moment. I need to get it done because tomorrow there are certain things that require me that I need to do, that require me to get the episode done today. Several episodes, so I'll see you in the next one. And the next episode will cover something that's very important, which is a degree that I'm taking lately that is consuming a lot of my time and energy.